Hey there, Dominic Steele and Daily Bible Time. I'm looking at verse 10 of Revelation 1 this morning, and this is the Bible study I'll be giving to the Anglicare board meeting in about an hour or so's time. Revelation 1 verse 10. On the Lord's day, I was in the Spirit. I take it John is under the control of the Holy Spirit. John is he's seeing a vision. It's a Spirit-inspired vision. And this is what it happens. I hear behind me a loud voice like a trumpet. He hears the voice of God. God is speaking to John. And God says, write down what you see and send it. Verse 11, which said, write on a scroll what you see and send it to the seven churches, to Ephesus, to Smyrna, to Pergamon, to Thyatira, to Sardis, to Philadelphia, to Laodicea. Now, the scroll, the writings, are to be sent to the churches of Asia. It's a letter to the churches of Asia. Now, in the Bible, there's a letter to the Romans, there's a letter to the Ephesians, there's a letter to the Galatians, but there is a letter to the churches of Asia. Since the government wants to keep telling us that Australia is part of Asia, this is a letter to the Australian church. No. There was a Roman province in those days on the Mediterranean coast, different to the area of the world that we now know as Asia. But this is a letter to us for a different reason. 7 in Revelation has meaning, symbolism, significance. It means whole, complete, perfect. And so this is a letter in the first place to those churches of Asia, but more importantly, this is a letter to the whole Christian church, the church of all time, the church of all place. What is the vision that John sees that he's told to write down and tell the churches? It is a blazing vision of Jesus. Verse 12, I turned around to see the voice that was speaking to me. When I turned, I saw 7 gold lampstands standing, and among the lampstands, someone like a son of man. It is a vision of someone like a son of man. It is Jesus standing in the middle of the lampstands. What's a lampstand? Well, last words of sentence 20 at the end of Revelation chapter 1. The 7 lampstands are the 7 churches. So John is told to write down this vision of Jesus in the middle of the churches and send it to the churches. It is a vision of Jesus in the midst of the church. It's Jesus standing in our midst. I keep being tempted to think like Bette Midler thinks. God is watching us from a distance. I keep slipping into that way of thinking. But here is Jesus standing amongst us. I don't know, 5th row from the front, 4th person on the left. He is amongst us. He's in the middle of us. He's here now. That is the vision that John is told to write down and send to the church. When the church gathers, Jesus is there. Do you believe that? This Sunday at Village Church, Jesus is there. We go to meet with Jesus. Do you believe that? As we gather, whether we gather at a Christian conference or a Christian board meeting, like I will be this morning, Christians from all sorts of churches, Jesus is standing in our midst, dressed, verse 13, in a robe reaching down to his feet with a gold sash around his chest, his head and hair white like wool, white as snow, his eyes like blazing fire, feet like bronze glowing in the furnace, his voice like the sound of rushing waters. That is spectacular imagery, royal imagery, the clothes of glory, stupendous glory. He's not wearing the carpenter's work clothes. He's not wearing the clothes of the itinerant Nazarene. He's wearing the clothes of the ruler of heaven. Feet of bronze glowing in a furnace. There's purity. Jesus has eyes of blazing fire. He sees everything. There's nothing in our lives that Jesus doesn't know about. But in the Old Testament part of the Bible, if you see somebody dressed in those clothes, then your mind goes back to Daniel 7. I looked. Daniel 7 verse 9. Thrones were set in place. The Ancient of Days took his seat. Clothing white as snow. Hair of head white as wool. Throne was flaming like fire, wheels all ablaze. And when you get to Revelation, you see one like a son of man. He's got the head and hair white like wool. The Son of Man of Revelation 1 is wearing the same clothes. He's wearing the robes of the Ancient of Days. He's wearing the robes of God, the magisterial robes of God. Either he's stolen God's clothes or he's God. And from the mouth of Jesus comes this sword. Out of his mouth comes a sharp, double-edged sword. And that's the picture from Hebrews 4 that Jesus speaks. His words cut, his words pierce, his words penetrate. And so, have I had that experience as I've listened to the words of Jesus, where the words have drilled me into the ground, cut me to the heart, divided soul and spirit? Verse 17, I saw him. I fell at his feet as though dead. Totally understandable. To stand in front of somebody with such power and might and majesty and holiness, Jesus fell at his feet as though dead. What is your attitude to Jesus? When you hear the words of Jesus, you kind of take it or leave it indifferent. It's one of the things I distress about in the Anglican communion at the moment. People take it or leave it or indifferent about the subject of sexuality and gender issues. If we see Jesus like John saw Jesus, when you hear the words of Jesus, you say, yes, sir. How high would you like me to jump, sir? Yes, sir. Look what Jesus does. He placed his right hand on me and said, do not be afraid. I am the first and the last. I am the living one. I was dead, and behold, I am alive forever and ever, and I hold the keys of death and Hades. Jesus says, do not be afraid. John, he's up close and personal, the most powerful person ever to walk the planet. He's right there and he's terrified. Why not fear? Why not be afraid? The bottom line is because John, the risen Jesus, with extraordinary authority, is on your side. Listen to Jesus. Do not be afraid. I am the first and the last. That's a claim to deity. A moment ago, Jesus was wearing God's clothes. Now, on the lips of Jesus is the claim to be eternal. A couple of sentences earlier, God had been described as the Alpha and the Omega, who is, who was, and is to come. Now Jesus is saying, I am the first and the last. Well, he's treading on God's toes, or Jesus is divine. What was being said of God in Revelation 1, sentence 8, is now being said of Jesus in Revelation 1, sentence 17. I find it strange that people can call Revelation the happy hunting ground for heretics, the cults, the sects, these groups that assert that Jesus is not God. Because this book so clearly asserts that Jesus is God. And he's not just divine here, he is living. I am the living one. Jesus is life. Jesus is the source of all created life. And you read what Jesus says next, I was dead. And behold, I am alive forever and ever. Jesus came to earth to die. He was death. He died the death that you and I should have died. But now, risen from the dead. Thanks for joining us on Daily Bible Time today. See you church on Sunday for Village Church, for Exodus 15, the horse and rider thrown into the sea, and back Daily Bible Time Monday morning.